Good morning, everybody. I'm Sarah, for those of you who don't know, or don't know me, I should say. This is the Q&A for putting in proposals this year for homecoming. And Stephanie Haynes is joining me in Paige's stead. Paige had a computer issue to deal with. Oops, here we go. There we go. Homecoming this is our statewide to-do, our statewide happy place each year. This is going to be year 5 for the arts community. Today we're going to be talking about how to get in that proposal, any questions you have about the theme or what we're looking for this year. And so we are recording it, so we have to go through a few things and make sure that the formalities get in the mix, but it's also a small group, so I want it to be sort of as conversational as possible on the way for all of your benefit in answering questions. So please use the chat, pop yourself up on the screen, all that sort of stuff. We want this to be as useful for you as possible. Stephanie, as our host, do you want to say any welcome?
Yeah, welcome to everyone who's on this call. I was real excited when I saw the registration list. You know, it's kind of a small group today here live, but I know you are all passionate arts people. So I'm excited to see what proposals come out from each of your organizations and your perspectives. So thanks for being here today.
Excellent. So this year, we are focusing on sort of arts learning writ large, really, really, really large, as the theme for things. And one of our super stupendous, rock star, awesome co-chairs was going to talk a little bit about this, but he's having some tech difficulty. So, Stephanie, I'm going to lean on you, my dear, to talk a little bit about what do we mean by this focus thing, right?
Yeah, arts learning. So, you know, we know some of the beauty of arts is sharing it with other people, right? And that's what arts learning is. It's about taking your craft, your knowledge in the arts, your creativity, and sharing it with others and helping them understand and learn how to harness their own creativity. So when we say arts learning, we're very mindful that it's not arts education, meaning only K-12. It's this bigger arts learning anywhere and everywhere you share your creativity with others.
Perfect. 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 And we want it to be across as many audience groups as possible. We always say that, you know, we always try to narrow the view of the homecoming audience, and then we say, no, we really mean the whole kit and caboodle. So, you know, when we're talking about who might be there, or who content should be aimed toward, or what we hope they get from it, we're talking about all the things that are on the screen right now. So artists and creative professionals, arts, youth, senior, community organizations, any of those sorts of things. Yes, of course, the formal K-12 art and educators and arts educators and the artists that serve them, 0 to 3 too, and upper above K-12 too. We want communities to be able to embrace learning and the power of creativity for community health and vibrancy as well. And of course, as always, we want strong advocates out in the field, making sure that arts is staying front and center. So we're hoping for a range of conversation that spans those who are deep in it and can talk the lingo, to those who want to be in it, can't talk the lingo, need that 101, need that basics, all that sort of range. Stephanie, you think I'm capturing the what we want to get out of it and for whom kind of thing? Excellent. And anybody stop me at any point along the way, all right? So Who normally comes, and who presents. You know, again, this is year 5. Some of you have attended before, some of you haven't, I think. And um, this is about for and about the field. So you guys are the ones that present. We bring in some experts for some specific kinds of topics from out in other places, but this is about Indiana. This is about the field itself, teaching and learning and sharing. So we really we want to do as much as we can to help those proposals come in. To the point that if you have an idea and you want to get it out there, it can be a snippet of an idea, and we'll talk about that in a second, or a full-blown idea, but you're not quite conference ready, or you've not done this before, this is a capacity building opportunity for you, we have your back. Let us know. We can find some mentors either on staff or in the field or on the steering committee. We can help you through this, and we can think about scaling, right? This is in a virtual environment. It's using some of the technology. We can talk about how to use the technology, how to present. We can do all sorts of things. We just need to know what you need. Types of content that we're looking for, and we call it a call for content instead of a call for proposal for sessions, because it's so much more than that. So we start with the classic sort of conference session, right? Skill building, how to lecture-y, hopefully not too lecture-y. We want it to be engaged, but the classic, right? We're also totally open to more of a networking, interactive, peer-to-peer kind of proposal, whether that's affinity groups coming together and sharing the misery or sharing the ideas, or it's a topical group, or it's a specific problem. If there are meetup ideas, chat ideas, networking or jam session ideas, we're open to those. Office hours. What do we mean by office hours? And this may be things that you suggest. You have an opportunity to suggest proposals too, as opposed to do, but maybe it's both. Here we're talking nuts and bolts. I have questions about nuts and bolts, things that I hope an arts attorney can come and talk about, or an accountant who knows things can talk about, or a fundraising consultant, or someone who is spot on front of house or back of house, right? Those expert Q&A and consultative kinds of approaches. Then last year, if you were with us, you know this, and if you don't, it'll be new to you. Last year, because we went virtual, we were able to interject creativity into the schedule in a way that we hadn't before, and we were really kind of excited by it. We started both days with a creative warm-up. We turned breaks into creative intermissions, and it attracted everything from a Martha Graham company dancer doing a physical warm-up to start the day, to one of our favorite arts administrators in the Indy area leading a community sing. Another friend out of Fort Wayne doing paper flower making and understanding Dias de los Muertos and all of the things that go around that. We had a couple tours of cultural centers around the state. It's a creative intermission, right? It's about engaging and showing off or learning something and all that sort of stuff. We're open to lightning round ideas this year. That's a new one, and that's I've got a snippet of an idea that I want to pop out there, or I want to try some messaging. Little snippets that we can package together into a series of snippets, right? That just gets you started in one way or another, gets you some feedback in one way or another. And then, because we are who we are, if you don't like any of those other categories and you've got something else to propose, what the heck? We don't force boxes on anybody. Come along to the party. Tell us what you're looking at. All right. Our illustrious co-chair, Jingo, has arrived. Jingo, do you want to say hi real quick? I might have frightened him.
I think that Jingo may have been able to connect for a moment, but perhaps is having connectivity issues and
Oh
is no
no.
longer
Okay.
here. Sorry about that.
No, no, no. We'll keep rolling. We'll keep
Hey,
rolling.
Sarah, that was going back to the slide before this about sessions. That was one of the questions, like how interactive should the sessions be or can the sessions be? And we're virtual and we're wide open.
Yep.
We definitely do want interaction.
Yep. So the basic setup is for the sessions themselves. We've got a platform that they're all on called sked.com. But the basic structure for the sessions themselves will be using Zoom. So hopefully that's familiar to everybody, at least at some level at this point. So interactivity. Obviously there's chat and the raise hands and all that sort of stuff as a potential part of it. We encourage our speakers, our presenters to build in as much interaction as they're comfortable with and as they're able to manage in a session, whether that's Q&A or whatever. Um, there is there's polling capacity within Zoom. If you're thinking along those lines, give us plenty of heads up so that we can make sure it's all set up in a way that works and we can test it and not have creative collapses on the day of. There are breakout rooms within Zoom. Again, we want to use that sparingly because it requires some extra staffing and tech. But if you are interested in going down that path, talk to us and we'll see what we can do or what we can't do and those sorts of things. In addition, the platform itself, materials can be uploaded to it. Folks can sort of tweet with each other and share along those lines as well. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and I just want to add, we're on this new frontier of what virtual learning can be, where what are the possibilities of interacting, of spending some time making things while virtual with, and that's what we want to model. If that's what's happening in our classrooms and in our arts learning in our organizations, that's what can happen on these sessions as well. So, yes to all of that.
Absolutely. And as always, just to reinforce again the interactivity and that meetup chat networking opportunity, we everybody knows that virtual is not the same as in person. There's some pluses, there's some minuses. One of the great things about statewide conferences is coming together and hugging each other and talking in between and saying, I need to talk to you over breakfast and all that sort of stuff. And so we're doing our darndest to find as many creative solutions to get there as possible. If you have ideas, or please, let me say again, please, we're open to them because we don't want to lose anything by being virtual. And we know we're opening up. When we started planning, we didn't know we were opening up. We still don't know what the fall is going to look like. So there we are, right? It is what it is sort of at the moment. All right. So what are we actually asking for in the proposal? So when you go, it's a SurveyMonkey setup. Hopefully that's familiar to folks. When you go in, it'll have the front page will have all of the things that we're talking about here and resources for you to help think about stuff. And then you'll go and it'll say, it'll ask you if I want to submit a proposal, I want to submit suggestions, I want to submit both. You pick one and it'll send you to the right questions, right? If you're just doing making suggestions about proposals, then it's just suggestion and your name for follow-up, and that's about it. If you're doing a full proposal, we try to keep it as streamlined as possible. So what are you thinking about in terms of title? Right? What do you think? Describe what you're thinking about to us. Give us the pitch. Tell us which of those type buckets you think you fit into, or not. Tell us a little bit about what audiences you think it will be most applicable to. So is it artists or educators? or organizations or all of the above. We actually like sessions that have as broad a reach as possible. And so we're not sort of creating the artist track and the organization track and the advocate track. But we recognize that there are some conversations that fit better in one place than another, right? And then we ask you, so that's the audience that you're aiming for. How are you going to engage them, right? So give us some thoughts about the interactivity or why it specifically fits them. If you have suggestions for other sessions that you don't want to do, you just want to suggest, you can do that. And then some basics about who you are as a speaker. If you're bringing partners in for the ride, we ask that sessions be limited to no more than 3 speakers. It sort of becomes overwhelming panel after that. We asked you tell us a little bit about if the speakers or content represent specific communities or voices or perspectives, so that we overall we want to represent as much of the state as possible, and that's geography, that's race, that's access, that's role in the community, that's all sorts of things. And so when we look at proposals, we try to look at as many of those variables as possible, and again, do our best. Right. And then we wrap up with if you or your partners in crime have any ADA accommodations that we need to be thinking about and planning for, we ask that you let us know that. And then sort of a catch-all at the end. Have you presented this before? So we know it's a practiced one or not. Do you want some mentoring or not? And then obviously the open-ended questions opportunity at the tail end. In terms of how the form works, you should be able to submit multiples. If somehow the settings are wrong and it says you've already submitted and you can't raise the red flag, that wasn't the intent, you should be able to submit multiples. That said, we do try to have individual speakers speak no more than once. We try not to make it the Julie show or the right over the course of 2 days. That's not a hard and fast rule, but it's we try to spread the love, right? All of the questions are on one screen, so you should be able to see. You shouldn't get caught in a required loop along the way. You should be able to manage that pretty well. Again, there's contact information if you run into technical difficulties along those lines. We're happy to help in any way we can. As you think about your title, think about what's the big idea, what's the call to action, right? What are you hoping folks take away and do in the pitch? We don't need a lot. We don't, it doesn't need to be huge, but folks are going to be looking at this and making an assessment as to whether it fits or doesn't fit. And if we get a huge number of proposals, we only have so many slots to fill. Even good stuff might not make it. So, help us understand what you're doing. We don't specifically ask for a teaching goal, but if you have one, include it in the description. Be a realistic, specific action, all that sort of stuff. And bio, you'll have an opportunity if you're selected to put your own bio into the sked.com. But at this stage of the game, enough to understand your expertise. Our steering committee is fabulous. They know lots of folks around the state, but they sure as heck don't know everybody. So assume that you're unknown to them and you're introducing yourself, right?
Sarah, I want to chime in for a second.
Please.
There's a question that was pre-submitted that I think is really great. There's a question about proposing a session or planning a session where you just kind of talk about what you did the whole time. how can we make presentations that share our good work and also engage the audience and help them walk away with something other than just like, oh, that was an interesting story? Do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah. So think about it as one way to do it. Think about it as a kitchen table conversation with your friends, right? So you tell a little bit of the story and they end up asking you some questions. So, or they end up responding and saying, gosh, I did something like that. Or that resonates with me. So can you break your story down into some pieces and pre-think about what those questions might be from the other side? So either going deeper on here's the story, and then here's the why we did it, or the what resulted, the go into the thought process so that they can replicate it, or go into the what happened so they can judge it. Or so that goes deeper in terms of learning on the one hand. If you want to go deeper in terms of interaction, then think in terms of here's what we did, and then again, ask the question out. Have you guys done anything like this? Would this work in your community? It worked for us. If you say you did it yourself, did it not work for you? Did it work for you? What was different, right? So think about what those probe questions might be. If you were the one hearing the story, right? If you were the one hearing the story about the experience, what would you be probing? What would you be wanting to take back home? What would you be saying, oh gosh, I wonder if my board would do that. Oh gosh, I wonder if my community would show up. Oh gosh, right? Pre-think of those questions and then break up your story into pieces with those in between. What do you think, Stephanie? You're the educator. Why are you asking me?
No, I was thinking similarly, like really think about what your audience how they can see themselves in the story you're telling, and how you can not just tell the story, like we did this project and here's the project, but talk about why. You already said this, but just walk it back a few steps. And so someone could ostensibly replicate some of the steps you took to get to their own project. So did you talk to your community to get to this project? Who did you meet with? Why did you plan this? Those sorts of things, which help people find their version of the story you're telling. Mm-hmm.
What do you wish you hadn't done and that you would warn anyone against in the future? Right? All that sort of stuff. Okie dokie. I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm going to plow through the next couple of things a little bit quicker and then send it back to you to ask all the questions in the world, right? So this is just a little bit in terms of logistics. On the left is just a snippet of what SCED looks like if you're chosen, and some of the things that you'll have speaker tools. You'll be able to do some sharing. Just a little taste there. We'll do trainings over the summer on how to use for selected speakers, so that all that's good. Admission is free for speakers and attendees this year. We're virtual. It's free. Speakers that are selected will have an opportunity to give a small honorarium. Don't get excited. It's but something. We'll have co-hosts in the quote unquote co-hosts in the room and tech support in the room, who can help watch chat, who can troubleshoot if there are problems, all that sort of stuff. And as you're thinking about the session, when we're in person, homecoming individual sessions tend to run anywhere from 20 people in them to 80 people in them for breakouts. In the virtual setting, our experience last year was the top end of that comes down at the same time that the overall attendance gets larger. And some of that is folks opting to come in and out of the conference in a way they wouldn't if they were in person, or to watch a session, sign up for it so they can watch the session down the line, right? That sort of stuff. So think about that kind of thing while you're doing it. This is just a glance at, what a day might look like, and sort of how it's structured. We start with a keynote. Actually, we start with a warm-up, we go to a keynote, we go to an intermission, we do a bunch of breakouts, another intermission, bunch of breakouts, right? Process. So who's going to choose the winners or losers or whatever? We've got a steering committee that is made up of peers in the field. Staff will do an initial review of the proposals and sort of swipe out the wild cards. I mean, not the wild cards. No, not in this case, but swipe out the ones that are, just really don't fit. You'd be amazed what some of the things that get submitted that are, here's my advertisement for my gym. Yeah, you'd just be amazed. Right. So they'll do some first screen and make some suggestions to the steering committee. The steering committee will see all of the ones that are eligible and tell the staff that they're either right or wrong, and then we'll finalize from there. So it's like a panel review. If you're part of the Arts Commission world already, it's a similar kind of process. We're looking for proposals that fit the conference theme in some way, interact in some way, build on the past in some way, celebrate Hoosiers in some way, right? It's not a hard formula. There's as much art as science in this, but know what our values are in this, right? As broad an audience, as connected to the topic, as progressive as we can, and as this is Indiana Homecoming. It's called Homecoming, Indiana Homecoming, Arts Homecoming for a reason. We want it to be Indiana.
Sarah, that's another question we had pre-submitted, I think is a really good question. How specific should the topic be? Like, what's too specific? What is too broad?
That's tough. That's tough to say, right? Because some of it is less about the topic and more about how it's presented, right? You can have a very specific topic that then is presented that talks about the thought process and the planning process and the outcomes, and ends up being sort of a really deep dive into something. It's just a narrow kind of example, or that takes that example and says these are the different ways you can use it. I think what I would say honestly is if you're playing around with some ideas and you're not sure if something's too specific or too broad or that sort of stuff, reach out. Just reach out. One of us will find the right person to talk to you and be a sounding board for you. Talk to us, right? This is not a you'll self-disqualify because you've created a conflict kind of thing. That ain't this what we're doing here. All right. I think I've covered everything here. So deadlines we've got today. Sorry for my clock. Submission deadline is end of day, June 10th. So that's 3 weeks from now. We've got the steering committee meeting the next week, and hope to get let people know late June, early July, something like that. As I said, we'll do webinar to go through details to help folks along. We will ask for draft materials in advance, just so we can help you out in any way, make sure we're being as accessible as possible. Accessibility is important to us. We'll ask for final materials just so that we know that they're final and they can get uploaded into the system and all that sort of thing. Though that said, there is absolutely no requirement that you have to have a PowerPoint. There isn't. We'll have a couple dummy slides for absolutely every session that are, the title and who it is, kind of stuff, and maybe a how to use the platform kind of, the usual sort of home housekeeping kinds of stuff. So you don't have to have a PowerPoint or materials, but if you do, we want to see them. And if you don't, we sort of want to see what your outline is, just to double check, right?